So this video is all about how a person's home is or can be protected if they go into a nursing home. But before I get into that, let me tell you a little story about a wealthy man who was about to pass away, and he was ill, and he called in his doctor, his lawyer, and his priest. And he said, look guys, they say you can't take your money with you. I'm wealthy, I have a lot of money, and I really want to test that theory out. So I'm going to give each of you an envelope with $100,000 cash, and at my funeral, I want you to put that in my coffin before they close it up. So they all agreed. They said okay. He passed away a few weeks later, and at the funeral, it was noticed all three of them went into the coffin and put an envelope into the coffin. So after the funeral is over, the three of them were walking away, and the doctor says, well, look guys, I know I was supposed to leave that $100,000 of cash in the envelope, but our hospital really needed a CAT scan machine. And so I took out $40,000 and put the rest, in the coffin. And then the priest says, well, funny you mention that, because at our church we help the homeless, and boy, we really needed $30,000 to do some good work for the homeless. So I took out $30,000 out of the envelope that he gave me, and I put the rest of the money, in the coffin. And then the lawyer says, I can't believe you guys did that. He made us promise to put that $100,000 in the coffin. And I want you guys to know that I wrote out a personal check for $100,000, and I put that in the envelope and left that in the coffin. There you go. Okay, so back to the home. Why this is important is when someone goes into a nursing home, they likely own some countable resources and some exempt assets. They're not penalized when they apply for Medicaid for owning exempt assets, but if they own countable resources, they've got to spend all that money, sell the assets, spend the money, and if it's a single person, down to $2,000 before they get any help from Medicaid. So countable resources really mess you up. Exempt assets, not so bad. So the home is generally an exempt asset. But there's a lot of definitions and variations to the home rule. So let's go through that. So generally speaking, and look, you can get a lot more on my podcast, Estate Planning with Paul Rabelais. You can get a lot more on the website, RabelaisEstatePlanning.com. Go on my YouTube channel, Rabelais Estate Planning LLC. Get lots more information. I'm just going to be real quick and real basic in the interest of making a video. But the home consists of, the home and the lot that it sits on and any other buildings on that lot. It also includes any what's called contiguous property. That's property that's attached to the lot that the home sits on. Even if there's a road that divides the two lots, as long as it's touching, even if corners are touching, it's contiguous. I see in another area of the Medicaid manual that we have in Louisiana that the homestead is defined as a piece of property up to 160 acres, that follows all those rules. So that's the quick definition of a home property. And I got a couple of notes here. Want to make sure we cover everything. There's an exception for a really valuable home. For 2018, the amount of home equity that is exempt is $572,000. 2017, it was $560,000. So if someone has more than $572,000 of equity in their home, if it's paid off and it's worth more than $572,000, or it's very valuable, they have a mortgage, but the equity is worth more than $572,000, you're going to have a problem because that excess equity is not an exempt asset. Also, if your home is out of state, somebody's in Louisiana, they apply for a nursing home, maybe they move to Louisiana to be closer to a child, but their home is in Florida or Mississippi or some other state, that out-of-state home typically is not exempt. Also, what catches people is if you even just put your home up for sale, you list it for sale, then it's no longer exempt. The thought is, the home is exempt because the presumption is that if someone in a nursing home gets better, they're going to go back home. But as soon as that home gets listed for sale, then the presumption is not that they're going to return home, and so it's no longer an exempt asset. It becomes a countable resource. Got to be careful there. So that's the first piece. Excuse me. There's three parts to this video. The second part is In certain exceptions, they'll let somebody transfer their asset out of their name before they go into a nursing home. You may think, why is that important? Because of Part 3, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is the state's estate recovery rights. But in certain circumstances, you can transfer your home to another person, not be penalized for it. Typically, you're subject to these 5-year penalties if you transfer things out of your name. A couple of the exceptions to you're penalized if you transfer your home out of your name rules are, one, and I want to get this right, is you transfer your home to a child who is blind or permanently and totally disabled as defined by SSI at the time of the transfer. So if that's the case, you can transfer your home to that disabled child and you're not penalized for it. I guess the rationale is, they want the disabled children to be able to have a home. And then the second one that we use sometimes is if you transfer it only, really works when this applies. You transfer your home to a child who was residing in the home for at least 2 years immediately before the date the person went into a nursing home, and they provided care to the individual, allowing the individual to reside at home. And then it goes on to state that in a note that this exception must be documented by a physician's written statement indicating that the physician had knowledge that during that 2 years, the child living with the parent in their home kept that parent out of the nursing home. So if you have all of that, parent can transfer their home to their child, for example, right before they go into a nursing home, no 5-year penalty, home protected. And it's protected because of number 3, which is the estate recovery rights that the state has if the Medicaid recipient owns their home when they die. So if they do own their home, they go into a nursing home, home's exempt, they leave the home in their name, and then later they pass away after Medicaid had paid for the nursing home. Medicaid has its estate recovery rights against all of the succession assets, the gross assets that are in the Louisiana succession, which would include the home. So, sometimes the home can't go to the children. People think it's exempt, protected, home free, no pun intended, but the state has its Medicaid estate recovery rights. They can pursue it after the Medicaid recipient dies, or if they're married after the Medicaid recipient and their spouse pass away. So there's a lot of other things that can be done if you plan ahead. This is more of the last minute stuff about the home. If you plan, you got a lot more options if you plan while you're well, ideally 5 years before you go into a nursing home. We'll have other videos on that. If you want to find out more, check out our podcast, our YouTube channel, our website. When you get serious about wanting to, have a program in place to protect what you have, you can contact us 866-491-3884, kind of helping people all over South Louisiana get their things in order. Hope that helps. Y'all have a great day and go Tigers.